It's really not like Tony Stark to show much emotion or affection towards anyone.
That's not a hug, I'm just grabbing the door for you. We're not there yet.
Heck, he's even pretty dry and snarky with his wife Pepper, the person he's closest with on the planet.
This is a new level of lame.
And he's definitely not the nicest to his employees or his fellow Avengers. This definitely isn't the kind of guy who opens up easily. Which makes the handwritten note that he leaves Peter Parker in Far From Home after his untimely passing in Endgame all the more meaningful. It means he loves Peter. Ooh. So here's a quick recap of what happened prior to that infamous scene in Far From Home, in case you haven't seen it. Wait a sec. If you haven't seen the movie, then why are you watching this video? It's literally full of spoilers. Happy Hogan shows up and gives Peter a case that has Tony Stark's Edith glasses in it. Edith is this fancy new technology that Tony came up with, similar to his old Jarvis system, but, you know, newer and better. Not only had Tony already gifted Spider-Man with the Iron Spider suit, but now a pair of fancy new Edith glasses. Perhaps more valuable than those two incredible pieces of tech, however, is a handwritten note. So how could a piece of paper with some scribble on it be worth more than the most powerful super operating system known to mankind? Well, I was clearly talking sentimental value because that suit and those glasses are probably worth like $1 billion. But emotionally, the note was the most important part. Tony Stark, never one to give much praise, was retroactively telling Peter Parker that he's his equal, even from the grave.
Everyone else said I was crazy to recruit a 14-year-old kid.
I'm 15.
We'll dive into their relationship a bit more later on, but right now let's focus on those dope new specs. In Far From Home, Spider-Man's not so keen on the whole, being a superhero thing, and doesn't feel worthy of this awesome gift and high praise from his idol and mentor. It's Imposter Syndrome 101. He doesn't feel worthy, nor does he really want to put up with all the headaches that come from being a full-time superhero. Seriously, the hours are terrible, and it's a very high-stress environment. I don't think they even get paid. As a result of Peter's discontent towards his line of work, and his discomfort with Tony's sudden onslaught of post-mortem approval, he gives the glasses to Quentin Beck, otherwise known as Mysterio. Quentin saved his life, or so he thought, from a massive threat, or so he thought. In what'll go down as the worst judgment call in MCU history, Peter believes Quentin to be more worthy of Tony's glasses and gives them to him. He believes that Mysterio is a better suitor to be the next Iron Man.
Finally! Yeah. No, people they care.
Of course, this is prior to finding out that Mysterio is a disgruntled former Tony Stark employee, as well as a trickster, illusionist, liar, and all-around awful person. At the time, it meant a lot for Peter to relinquish his bequeathal and just hand it over to someone else, especially a dude he sorta barely knows. He clearly wasn't ready to accept his fate as the next Tony Stark. Peter just wanted to run away from his responsibilities instead of owning up to them. It actually really ties into the whole, with great power comes great responsibility theme that's usually pretty prevalent in Spider-Man stories.
My name's the Human Spider.
I don't care, get out. No.
That's always been a running moral of the story, and it's cool to see Marvel get the message across without even needing to utter the words. After all, Peter just wanted to go on a trip with his friends without all the drama that comes with being a superhero. He wanted to escape that life, even for a little bit, so giving the glasses and all the power and responsibility that comes with the item over to someone else is definitely his version of taking the easy way out. In the end, Peter had to learn that it's not really up to him to choose this life. This life already chose him. Ball is life, spiders are forever. Not sure what that means. The same could be said for Tony Stark. He could have easily been an uber-successful business tycoon. He could have generated billions of dollars and grown his company to extreme heights. Heck, he could have just continued building weapons technology and super suits without ever feeling the need to get into one and actually go do the fighting. It was never required of Iron Man to save the day, and he easily could have lived a pretty awesome life had he never done so. But that's just what a hero does. A hero saves the world time after time because it's their responsibility, and no amount of complaining or whining about it can really get you out of doing it. It's not like cleaning your room.
Gotta clean the house now, people!
Tony and Peter share the same feeling of responsibility. Although it took Peter a bit of time to come to the realization, it was inevitable. He's a hero, and that's what heroes do. It also didn't help that the guy he chose to take his place turned out to be a lying piece of garbage. That essentially pushed Spider-Man over the edge and made him realize that he needs to be a hero.
Dude, he's great.
He's awesome.
Yeah, he's good.
He's the nicest guy.
What's interesting, though, is that the note doesn't actually specify anywhere that the glasses are for Spider-Man. This definitely could have been something that Tony set up prior to his passing, without anyone specific in mind. Perhaps Tony didn't even choose a successor. Maybe he just developed the tech, wrote a quick sentence to whoever would eventually receive the package, and that was that. If that's the case, then why did Edith end up in the hands of Spider-Man? Well, my assumption is that Happy Hogan had something to do with that. Happy was Tony's longtime assistant, and knew him as well as anyone. Happy also helped get Spider-Man accustomed to life as a superhero, and helped him transition into the role. While they often clashed and butted heads, Happy also saw the potential in Peter. Perhaps the whole successor thing was actually Happy's call. Regardless of who made it, it was the right one.
I mean, before I met Tony,
Odds are it was Tony's decision, though. I say that based solely on the relationship between Peter Parker and Tony Stark. Peter never had a father, and up until Avengers Endgame, Tony didn't have any children of his own. They filled voids in each other's lives and developed a mutually beneficial, emotional relationship.
told you he's a good kid.
In fact, the entire universe was saved because of this relationship. You'll recall that touching scene at the end of Avengers Infinity War, where Spider-Man fades into dust in Tony's arms. It was a heart-wrenching moment and a real tearjerker, but it was also what inspired Tony to come back in Endgame and fix it all. Tony felt responsible for the loss of his boy Petey. 5 years later, in Endgame, Tony's finally happy. He's settled down with Pepper, they have a child together, and live in a dope house in the woods near a lake. What more could you ask for? At first, he refuses to jump back into the action when the Avengers propose the plan to reverse the snap. However, he still lived with the guilt of Peter Parker drifting away in the wind, and that emotion caused him to very easily figure out time travel and then save the day once and for all by snapping away Thanos and his army. In a way, Tony died so that Peter could live. Peter always wanted Tony's approval, yet getting it felt understandably uncomfortable. Peter always wanted validation from his mentor and just wanted to be part of the team, so he felt unprepared when he was suddenly made team captain. That's a lot to process. While there's currently no concrete Avengers roster, you've got to assume that Peter Parker will step into Tony Stark's role as the unspoken leader. It's Spider-Man's MCU now. Instead of relish his newfound responsibility, though, Peter chose to run from it. Psychologically, that's a lot to handle. Your mentor, who just passed away saving your life, tells you that you're his replacement, and that's supposed to be met with excitement and joy? Nah, that's terrifying. It takes time to process something of that magnitude. Eventually, Peter was able to let it sink in and accept his fate as a superhero. This was Tony's way of saying that he's proud of Peter and that he loves him. For a guy who's never really one to say nice things or show any type of emotion, it's a pretty big deal to get this large of a nod of approval from a guy like Tony. He's certainly not the gushy type to really say anything positive about anybody.
Unbelievable. Thank you so much, Tony.
So giving Peter this tip of the hat must mean a lot. It also marks the legitimate end of Phase 3 and the beginning of Phase 4. In a way, it's even bigger than that. It actually marks the end of Marvel's first decade and the beginning of their next. Iron Man had been the largest staple of the MCU since 2008, when the original Iron Man film actually launched the entire MCU. This one simple handwritten note marks the passing of the torch from Iron Man to Spider-Man as the go-to hero. He's the franchise player of the MCU now, thanks to the previous one making it official. It's the dawn of a new era, and Spider-Man is soundly at the helm. What do you think? Is there something significant about Tony's note that we forgot to mention? Let us know your thoughts and feelings in the comments section down below. We love checking out what you have to say, so don't be shy. Also, you'd be doing us a real solid by pressing that thumbs up button, and make sure to subscribe to Behind the Screen to stay up to date on all of our latest releases. Until next time, bye!